there? Who gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Electricity, 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 electricity. You know what's in the air. 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 It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility. Yeah.
So Bill Burr on his podcast recently was talking about inequality in this country and how it leads to worse outcomes, worse results for the country, and for all the people in the country, most of the people in the country, and talks about how psychopathic billionaires are essentially trying to control everybody's life and squeezing any freedom, any breathing room that the average person might have out of their life. And I mean, it's just a pretty solid class analysis. Bill Burr is a sharp guy. And I think lately he's been pretty on point. He seems pretty fed up with the same things that a lot of us are fed up with. And it is refreshing to hear somebody who has some money, somebody who has been successful, who's not completely like indoctrinated by the capitalist machine, to where they're scared to point out certain things that we all notice. So I'll play this clip and then talk about it a little.
People that are struggling out there because of these billionaires, and they got us all arguing liberal and conservative. We got to stop doing that. Like, I am so tired of hearing about people going to bed worried about what's going to happen next week. There is so much money in this country, and there's so much work being done. You know, and if you work a full week at a job, you should be able to pay your rent. You shouldn't have to go out and get a job and still be struggling. It's bad for the country, because then the kids don't see their parents, so they're not getting the upbringing that they need. It's so these billionaires, they need to be put down. You know, like rabid dogs. They're like rabid with greed and just going out and just dividing everybody.
So there's an interesting combination there of empathy for working and poor people and sharp-toothed venom for rich people and billionaires. You know, we're talking about mega rich psychopath billionaires here. And you know, there's a clear recognition from Bill Burr, not just in this statement, but in previous statements that he's made. He had a similar sentiment about the Luigi Mangione situation. And, you know, I think that balance between being able to be empathetic towards the people who do all the work in this country and, you know, vitriolically angry, violently angry at people who exploit those that do all the work in this country, that is a profoundly human, I think it's a sign of a balanced psyche, you know? Like, that's a person who has empathy and anger and righteous anger well balanced within their mind. And it's just refreshing because we don't hear that a lot from these celebrities, you know, whether they be comedians, whether they be musicians, actors, whoever they are. It's rare that you see this type of bite in the things that they're willing to say publicly. And I think Bill Burr is an interesting example, not just of a comedian, but of a public figure, because he has bought himself a lot of credibility. He's bought himself a lot of, I guess you could say, political capital when it comes to things that he can get away with saying, things that he can go on TV and say. I mean, he was saying some pretty bold shit about the Luigi Mangione situation, and those were on like news programs that they were bringing him onto. So not only is he able to get away with saying stuff like that, but people actually bring him on and value that about his perspective. And it's kind of that thing of the jester's privilege, where because he is an internationally recognized and a consistently funny comedian, he gets away with saying a lot of shit that other people don't say. And when you have a lot of comedians out there saying shocking shit, saying risky stuff, you know, things that they get backlash for, things that people get mad at them for, or some cases they might lose opportunities over, you know, these brave warriors of free speech that we have in comedians, even amongst them, it's pretty rare that they say something that challenges power directly, whether it's political power and the people who are in power in the government, or you know, like the billionaires and the rich who really run the show. And really that's just a feature or a symptom of Hollywood, where once you're in the Hollywood machine and you have prospects within the Hollywood machine, you don't even have to be successful. You just have to feel like there's a reasonable chance that if you keep working and maintain good relationships within the Hollywood movie studio or mainstream label, you know, in those political worlds, as long as you maintain your relationships there, you could have a successful career. And even then, you're not going to say things that rock the boat. And it's pretty rare. It's pretty rare that we get a perspective from anybody who's building a name for themselves, or even people who've been around for a long time, where they're really able to cut through the noise and speak to something that I think is relatable to the broadest amount of people. And really, I think that the message that's going to do that consistently is a class-conscious message, a message that speaks to the fact that class warfare is constantly being waged against the poor and against the people who do all of the work in the country. And American billionaires and politicians have mastered the art of class warfare against the poor, to the extent where a lot of poor people are completely indoctrinated by the capitalist system that exploits them, and are indoctrinated against things like unions that are the only means that working people have of fighting back against that corruption. So these are working people that are against their own ability to exercise leverage against employers. And it's this individualistic mindset that America has fostered very well. And, you know, the sort of think tank creeps that have designed this current political situation, they thrive off of that type of individualism. That's their bread and butter. And oftentimes with comedians or commentators or singers or whoever, you have that type of individualistic mindset, you know, even among people that have good hearts or come from decent political backgrounds or whatever. It's like, the further you go in terms of being in the limelight and having a name that represents success in entertainment, the more you're going to be worried about getting your own bag and not upsetting the system too much, not doing anything that's going to prevent you from getting money at some point in the future. And so that's the kind of self-censorship that sort of runs the game. And, you know, Bill Burr, for whatever reason, feels more comfortable piercing that veil than like 99% of public figures at all. And the fact that he's willing to be so vicious about it, and, you know, even use violent language, like put them down like rabid dogs, it speaks to his, you know, balls that he has to, like, I mean, it's real free speech, you know, not just punching down, saying shitty things about trans people because there are Facebook regulations against it, but saying things that the richest people in the world, the most powerful people in the world, don't want to be said about them. That's the point of free speech. It's to be able to say things about the most powerful people and use the power that you have with your words against them, especially in the cases of class warfare or political repression of some kind. I mean, that's why we have that right. And so Bill Burr doing it the way he does, a lot of this commentary that he does is on his own podcast or when he does interviews and stuff like that. But I mean, he's really operating within the tradition of like George Carlin, you know, like really speaking truth to power and doing it in a way that is very callous, and it's sharp enough to actually make a dent. You know, he's not just saying this to the audience of people that he knows he can reach to try to like make us all feel better, make himself feel better by saying something that addresses the situation, but he's making direct shots that are aimed at causing people to wake up to their class consciousness a little bit and be willing to do things like what Luigi Mangione did. I mean, that's what Bill Burr is sort of referencing with the shit he's saying, and he's referencing a feeling that a lot of people had, which is that things would be better in this country and the poorest people would be better off if CEOs were more often afraid in the way that they were because of Luigi Mangione. And his ability to make them afraid creates a material benefit for poor and working people. And it also has a tangible domino effect, or at least creates the potential for a better dynamic, a better class dynamic in this country. Because right now the rich, they do everything they can and they get away with as much as they can. And there's really, especially at this moment, there's just no guardrails at all to stop them. And so the only guardrails that are going to be able to make a dent here is people utilizing their right to free speech and people utilizing their right to protest, and doing so in a way that is not toothless, doing so in a way that creates a real threat of the economics of this country grinding to a halt and the functionality of this country grinding to a halt. That's the leverage we need to be able to utilize and willing to utilize in this moment that we're in, because it's the only leverage we have, organized labor action, unified consumer action, like the boycott of Target that is going on right now over their rollback of DEI policies. I believe that is run by Nina Turner's group, We Are Somebody, if I have that right. And so, I mean, that's the type of power that we have. Political power has been essentially taken away from large swaths of the population through tactics of minority rule. Minority rule has essentially been enshrined in this country, and it's very likely that it will be entrenched, at least for the near future. So, we are looking at a situation where we have to essentially use everything that we have other than our political means. And it's not to say that we should abandon political or electoral means overall, but there's lots of ways for Americans to resist the conditions of this country and the impending, psychopathic appropriation of every aspect of American life to billionaires. There's a lot of ways that we can resist that, and we just have to get brave. And it comes down to people using their imagination a little bit and being willing to risk whatever their personal situation is in order to do something that might further the cause. And that is what Bill Burr is doing here. He's taking his position and his credibility that he's built up over the years, and he is using it to really say something. And you're not really saying something unless you're risking your career to say it. I mean, if we're talking about free speech, that's really what free speech is all about. And that's how you utilize your free speech. You push the line. And so I respect what Bill Burr is saying here. And I mean, I'm not saying that he's flawless either, or that he's going to be some kind of, spokesperson. Because even in this video, or in this clip, he made it pretty clear that he's not really talking about left and right. And there's a lot of truth to that. A lot of conservative voters and people who consider themselves conservative are voting against their own interest, and we know this, and it's probably going to be more clear than it's ever been during this Trump administration, as they're peeling back so many programs that people need in ways that they don't realize yet. And so eventually they're going to realize it. And it's important not only to constantly point back to the programs being cut as the reason that suffering is increased in this country in the near future. Suffering will be increased. There will be unique and bizarre situations, like people left with medical machinery and equipment inside of their body still from programs where the funding was cut suddenly. So they're never going to get the rest of the treatment that they signed up for, and different things like that. People having experimental drugs still in their bodies without receiving medical attention for it in the way that they're supposed to be. You know, everything from that to more cataclysmic financial fallout is going to be the result of Donald Trump's policies. And we've got to be able to point back to those policies in an effective way. And we've got to be able to point the anger in the right direction. The left has failed to do that, to get people angry at the right targets. And so we've got easy targets right now. Donald Trump and Elon Musk are easy targets. It's one good thing about Donald Trump being president, is that he is an easy target that you can channel a lot of class angst and anger through. And so we've got to utilize that tool, but it's not just about Trump. I think people are more likely to agree with more vicious criticisms of CEOs and that sort of thing, just because the issue of Trump has become muddied. And I don't think that will be the case for much longer. I think that there's only so long this sham can go on before people start to realize, I mean, only because it's going to be so much worse this time than it was last time. So we'll see. But the point being that Bill Burr has his eye on the prize when it comes to targeting billionaires with this type of talk. And really, it's repetition. Repetition is how these things gain momentum. So we need to take the core pieces of what Bill Burr is saying here and try to repeat it through as many vectors as we can so that we can turn up the heat on some of these psychopath losers that are trying to control everything. If you like this video, like and subscribe, drop a comment. And if you really want to support, consider becoming a member. That's the best way to be one of the core supporters of the show. I'm dropping exclusive content on there, exclusive songs. If you like the beats that play, all of those are going to be posted as exclusive content, at least at first. And if you have other ideas for stuff that you would like to see as exclusive content and things like that, let me know.